Well, hello, my dear students. Miss Elvira here with your history class. This week, we will be learning about the Assyrian, the new Babylonian Empire, also known as the Chaldean Empire, and the Persian Empire. To get started, we will be talking about the Assyrian Empire, which is our section 5.1. The origin of the Assyrian Empire. Well, kings and people who aspired to rule the world began rising and falling in the 700 BC. And to tell you the truth, that hasn't stopped because still today we have people who want to conquer or to aspire to have more power than others. Well, the first conquerors came from Assyria, originally a small area in the rolling hill country of the upper Tigris River Valley. The Assyrians were probably named for Shem's son Assur, who built the city of Assur. The people who established the Assyrian Empire were actually a mixture of Semites and Hamites. Ham's grandson, Nimrod, had entered the Assyria at an early date. Nimrod led the building of the city of Nineveh, which later replaced Assur as the capital of the Assyrian Empire. The Assyrian drive to build a world empire began in earnest during the 700 BC under the Tiglath-Pileser II. Going back to the slide before this one, it's also it's also important to mention that Nimrod ruled through 745 to 725 BC. By the late 1600s BC, the Assyrian controlled nearly all the Fertile Crescent, part of Central Asia Minor, and Egypt. And if you look at the map, you can see all the yellow parts highlighted was the area that the Assyrian Empire conquered. Their conquests included Israelites of the northern kingdom whose time had come to suffer judgment for their sins. And you can find that in the Bible actually. And if you're interested, it's Isaiah chapter 10, verse 5 to 6. Well, let's talk about some of the methods the Assyrian Empire had. It's important for you to know that the Assyrians were among the most feared and hated people of ancient times. They destroyed and replaced governments, attempting to crush the spirit of nationalism among the people they conquered. They brought new inhabitants from elsewhere because they frequently deported nations from their lands by sending them to another locations. Around 722 BC, the Assyrian Empire, or the Assyrian king Shalmaneser V, deported 10 tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel. They scattered all around the empire, but never returned to their homeland. Okay, let's mention some of the purposes of the Assyrian Empire. Well, one of the purpose was wealth. And pretty much I think this is the most important one because through fear and terror, the Assyrians conquered and ruled a great empire that brought them enormous wealth. Another purpose was art and literature. The empire also enabled the Assyrian kings to pursue their interest in art and literature. The records of brutality. Assyrian kings had numerous images and inscriptions carved into stone to celebrate their feast. Now, everything that rises has to fall. So, we'll talk about the fall of the Assyrian Empire. How was it that they fell and their empire came to ruins? Well, the Assyrian king Sennacherib died at the hands of his own children. It's important to mention that because he was so proud of himself, he thought that God, the God of Judah, could not be better than the gods of the people he had already conquered. So he had just finished his blasphemy when the angels completely destroyed the Assyrian forces and sent the king running home in shame to Assyria. And that's when he died in the hands of his own children. Chaldeans from the southern Mesopotamia, Medes from the east, and Scythians from the north combined to attack, and they destroyed the empire. Nineveh fell in 612 BC, and less than 100 years after reaching its peak in power and size, the Assyrian Empire was wiped from the face of the earth. So that's when the empire was no longer important, because they got destroyed by these three who combined together to attack. Okay, what is the assignment for this section 5.1? You will answer, you will copy the questions and answer them on your notebook. And you can find the section 5.1 on page 41. Now let's move to the next topic, which is the New Babylonian Empire, origin of the Chaldean Empire. The Chaldean Empire, King Nabopolassar, formed an alliance with Medes and the Scythians, who have thrown the Assyrian Empire, like we just mentioned. The Chaldeans conquered all of the Mesopotamia and established the Chaldean Empire. Under the Nabopolassar, sons Nebuchadnezzar conquered the western part of the Fertile Crescent, including the southern part of Judah. Now, if you remember the map from the other slide, the Assyrian Empire was bigger because it covered some part of Egypt, but the Chaldean Empire was a little smaller. Now let's talk about the method of the Chaldean Empire. The Chaldeans treated their captives better than the Assyrian had treated theirs. If I didn't mention it, the Assyrian Empire were very hardish, I guess you can say. They were mean to their captives, and what they did is that they made people fear them, and they took advantage of that terror they created, and they conquered and ruled. But the Chaldean were a little more, I guess you would say, less mean, or yeah, I guess you can say that like that. The Assyrians were mean, but the Chaldeans were less mean to their captains. And the Jews actually prospered during the captivity in Babylon, so that was a good thing. Now, Daniel became the chief advisor to Nebuchadnezzar. And if you are familiar to the Bible, you also know that Nebuchadnezzar had a very interesting and important dream. Nebuchadnezzar had a dream which foretold the curse of the world history. And the only person who could tell what this dream was all about was Daniel. Well, Daniel explained the dream, and he told Nebuchadnezzar that God of heaven had given him a preview of the great empires that would rule the world. Now, how did this empire fail? The fall of the Babylonian Empire, or the Chaldean Empire. Excuse me. Nabonidus, the last Chaldean king, cared more for travel than government. So he appointed his son, Belshazzar, to handle the actual business of government for him. So actually, let's put it this way. The father was still the king, but his son was the one who was taking care of the business, because the father cared more about traveling and other things. But who was actually more into the business part of or handling the government was his son. In 530 ABC, Belshazzar held a great banquet for 1,000 people. While he and his guests were drinking from gold and silver cups, taking years before the God's temple in Jerusalem, a hand from heaven appeared and wrote on the wall of the banquet hall. And if you look at the image that I place on the slide, it's something like that happened. They were all in, I guess you would say, a party. They were eating and drinking, and out of the nowhere, a hand from heaven wrote a message on the wall. Everyone was scared. Nobody knew what was going on. Now, do you remember Daniel that we mentioned? Well, everyone had forgotten about him. The only one who remembered him was Belshazzar's queen. So Belshazzar sent someone to search for Daniel so he could help read this message, because he didn't know what it meant. Well, Daniel, who came to tell what the message was about, he said that it was a prophecy of the doom of Babylon. The same night, in fulfillment of the prophecy, Medes and Persians invaded the city, and Belshazzar was killed. Less than 100 years after it began, the Chaldean Empire ended abruptly. So basically, the message that was on the wall was saying that their time came, and it was time for Belshazzar to die. So that's how this empire fell. Now, for your assignment, you will go to page 43 on your history book, and you will write the answers, questions and answers of section 5.2, but you will only answer number 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 on your notebook. After you are done answering these 2 checkups or section reviews, you will send them to my WhatsApp like you did last time. Okay, well, that's it for now, and you guys enjoy.